Today's gospel is a splendid gospel, and so this morning I thought we would go line by line with an explanation and exegesis of the text. It is a splendid gospel, and the high point of the gospel is that central proclamation of Jesus that I am the resurrection and the life. In John's gospel, it is a sign that is fulfilled in Jesus' raising of Lazarus. So Lazarus becomes the sign of the truth of Jesus being the resurrection and the life. And Jesus uses those powerful words, Lazarus come out, when he stands outside the tomb, and then untie him and let him go. We see that this is a story that is not just about a healing, right? Lazarus has been dead for 4 days. And so Jesus, who is the resurrection and life, sees life where everyone else sees death. He sees life, and it is something that he does and is who he is not, and it's not just one event long ago, right? It is a revelation of who Jesus is in himself and what he does. And it also is a parallel for us because we too are sometimes, or at least part of our hearts or lives can be put into tombs, right? We can place our own hearts and lives into tombs. Sometimes it's the tomb of our sin. Sometimes it may be a bad decision that we regret that we can't undo. It may be a wound that we have become very comfortable with. It may be a weakness that we have that we really have not been able to ever change, right? There's sometimes darkness in our lives that we kind of dig our own tombs and we kind of separate that out from other people. We separate it out even from God, and that becomes where we are in darkness. Jesus is the one who stands outside of Lazarus' tomb and cries to him, Lazarus, come out. He stands outside of each of our places that are dark and tomb-like in our hearts, calling our name and calling us to come out. And it's important to realize, too, that Lazarus, when he comes out, comes to life, right? That Jesus, in fact, is giving him life. Now, it's not life that's going to last forever. He will die again. But St. Paul tells us in the second reading that the Spirit of the one who raised Jesus from the dead dwells in you. Right? That is the eternal life that's been given to us already, that our resurrection isn't just a future event for us. It is also the life of God in us now, that has already begun in us. The important point is that Jesus does not give us sort of a manual of self-help, right? It's not about kind of self-improvement for those areas of darkness in our lives. It is a response to his call. It is Jesus who does the work, that does the thing that we can't do in and of ourselves, that God is at work within each one of us. Many of you know that when I went to seminary, my first semester in seminary, right before Thanksgiving, my grandmother Seal died. And I was very sad and shocked by that and flew home. And actually, if you've ever lost someone, you know there's kind of a ritual where you pull out all the old pictures and you start going through those and selecting them. We did that at our Thanksgiving dinner, right? And I was broken by that. And I was the seminarian in the family, and so I was the expert on the liturgy. Right? So I was given sort of all the tasks of deciding the readings and the music and all those kinds of things. And to be honest, at the time, I resented it, right? Because I was grieving, I was hurting, and I felt like that was just an imposition, an obligation being put upon me when all I wanted was to grieve. Years later, after I'd left seminary and gone back, I was back for my first semester again, and my grandfather, Bud, my grandma Seal's husband, died. And so I flew back for the funeral again and was here for that. And I was again the expert because I was back in seminary. So I had all the same tasks, even did the eulogy. But something had changed. God had been at work in me. And instead of seeing it as a burden or resenting it, I saw it as a gift, a way I could serve and love my family and that I could love my grandpa, right? God had done some work in me that had pulled me out and changed me. That's what God does for each of us. You know, Jesus, when he's outside of Lazarus' tomb, is not giving Lazarus advice on how to dig himself out. right? He is calling his name. Come out. Be free. Be unbound. And that's an important note too, because grace gives us new life, the grace of our baptism, right? But we still may need to be unbound even after we come back to life. And we need the church. We need each other here. We need the Eucharist to be able to be untied and experience freedom. That is a process that continues. And Jesus is the one outside the tomb. You know, this moment in John's gospel is the moment that really pivots everything towards Jesus' death. The leaders become resolved to put him to death after he raises Lazarus from the dead. And so Jesus, who is the one calling to the tomb, will soon enter the tomb himself, so that every doubt, so that every sin, so that every regret, so that every one of those things can be conquered in our own lives, right? He calls us to life. And so this morning, as we approach this Eucharist, and as we approach the celebration of Easter, which is Jesus who is the resurrection and the life, right? God is calling to us. Jesus continues to call to you and to me this morning. Come out. Be untied. Be free.